It was a normal mid-afternoon in Washington, D.C.
The kind of afternoon where the city hums like a living machine, tourists snapping photos, federal workers rushing with coffees in hand, sirens blending into distant traffic like background noise.
Nothing unusual. Nothing alarming.
Just another day in the capital of the most powerful nation on earth.
But sometimes, the most ordinary moments are the ones that collapse into chaos.
Because on this day, in broad daylight, just blocks from the White House, the unthinkable happened. A lone gunman stepped out onto a routine patrol route.
No warning. No confrontation. No build-up. And then, he opened fire.
2 uniformed National Guard members were ambushed in the middle of their duty post. One would be fighting for his life within minutes.
The other would never go home again. Shots echoed through downtown like thunder.
Pedestrians screamed and scattered.
The heart of Washington froze. This wasn't overseas. This wasn't a battlefield.
This was America's capital, and one violent act would shake the entire nation. This is the story of the D.C. National Guard ambush, the shooting that ignited outrage, fear, political firestorms, and a desperate hunt for answers. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel.
No gloss, no sugarcoat, just raw reality. To understand the gravity of what happened that day, you need to understand where it happened. And who it happened to. Washington, D.C. isn't just a city, it's a symbol. A pressure point.
A place where every action, even the smallest, carries weight. On that afternoon, the streets near Farragut West Metro Station felt almost peaceful.
Federal employees were clocking out early. Tourists were lining up for photos. Traffic was slow but steady. And 2 young National Guard members, Specialist Sarah Beckram, 20, and Specialist Andrew Wolf, 24,
were on a routine patrol assigned as part of a federally mandated crime reduction surge.
For them, this was duty. Service. Another day in uniform.
Another day protecting a city that never truly sleeps. Sarah was the kind of soldier who believed in doing things right, disciplined, focused, the kind of person teammates relied on. Just 20 years old and already building a reputation for courage beyond her age. Andrew, at 24, was more seasoned, more experienced. He had that quiet confidence soldiers get after enough hours on patrol.
Calm under pressure. Steady. Someone you want beside you when things go wrong.
But on this day, they weren't thinking about danger.
They weren't gearing up for a firefight.
They were just walking the perimeter, fulfilling orders, part of a presence meant to reassure the public. And the public did feel reassured. Troops standing watch near the White House made the streets feel safer, more controlled, more secure.
But security is sometimes nothing more than an illusion.
Because somewhere, not far away, a man was driving cross-country with a plan no one saw coming.
The target, the heart of the nation's capital. The intent, to ambush uniformed soldiers.
Nothing in the city's rhythm gave away his presence.
But in a matter of moments, normalcy would collapse.
At approximately 2:15 p.m., less than 2 blocks from the White House, the suspect allegedly took position. Court documents indicate he opened fire almost immediately when he saw his targets. Witnesses later described sudden, sharp gunfire ripping through the calm. Pedestrians screamed, cars screeched to a halt, and the sounds echoed off surrounding buildings.
Specialist Beckram and Specialist Wolf were caught in an instant ambush. One officer fell immediately, mortally wounded.
The other scrambled for cover, returning fire, trying to respond as the scene erupted into chaos.
Nearby guards and federal law enforcement responded within seconds.
A fellow National Guard member reportedly engaged the suspect, shooting him and subduing the threat. Within moments, the gunfire ceased. The city that had been humming in ordinary life froze in shock. Officers were assessing the scene. The suspect was wounded but alive.
He was quickly taken under guard to a local hospital.
His injuries were serious but not fatal. Meanwhile, the surviving soldier was stabilized and rushed to medical care. Tragically, Specialist Beckram would later succumb to her injuries, confirming the worst fears of those on the scene. News of the shooting spread immediately. Emergency alerts, social media posts, and official briefings filled newsfeeds. For many residents, it was incomprehensible, a violent act unfolding in daylight, in the middle of one of the world's most heavily monitored cities. Authorities, including the D.C. Metropolitan Police, the FBI, and federal agents, converged on the scene to secure evidence, identify the wounded, and begin a thorough investigation. The streets around Farragut West were cordoned off, a visible sign that a serious crime had taken place.
The victims' families were notified.
The nation watched as the gravity of the ambush became clear. Officials confirmed that the attack was targeted specifically against uniformed National Guard members deployed as part of a federal security initiative in the capital. In response, the federal government announced immediate charges against the suspect: first-degree murder while armed, multiple counts of assault with intent to kill while armed, and firearm-related offenses. During his first court appearance, the suspect appeared remotely from a hospital bed, under guard, with his attorney entering a not guilty plea on his behalf.
Public reaction was swift.
Shock, grief, and outrage spread through Washington and beyond. Government officials, including the White House, described the attack as a terrorizing act. The West Virginia governor publicly mourned the loss of the fallen soldier and urged citizens to pray for the surviving victim.
At the same time, questions began to mount. Why did this happen? Was it a personal vendetta, a radicalized act, or something else?
Investigators confirmed they were examining the suspect's history, communications, and potential influences, while noting that the motive remains unconfirmed.
Across the city, heightened security measures were implemented.
Streets once bustling with civilians now saw additional National Guard deployment, checkpoints, and visible law enforcement presence.
While some residents felt reassured, others were left wondering if safety could ever truly return to the capital streets.
In the hours, days, and weeks following the ambush, multiple federal agencies worked around the clock to reconstruct what happened and why. The FBI, D.C. Metropolitan Police, and federal law enforcement collaborated to gather evidence, interview witnesses, and secure the crime scene.
Surveillance footage from nearby buildings and metro cameras became crucial. Investigators examined every angle, tracking the movements of the suspect before, during, and after the shooting. They mapped his route across the city streets, cross-referenced timelines, and sought connections that might explain his motives. At the suspect's residence in Bellingham, Washington, law enforcement executed search warrants.
They recovered numerous electronic devices, phones, laptops, and tablets now under forensic analysis. Authorities sought any communications, social media activity, or other digital footprints that might indicate planning, intent, or accomplices. The investigation also expanded to the deployment of the National Guard itself. The presence of troops in the capital had been under legal scrutiny, with a federal judge recently ruling parts of the federal deployment unlawful. Analysts and lawmakers began debating whether the ambush highlighted vulnerabilities in urban patrol planning or whether the attack was strictly isolated. Officials stressed that, as of now, the suspect acted alone.
There was no confirmed evidence of additional collaborators.
Yet investigators continued examining possible influences, psychological factors, exposure to extremist content, or other triggers. Every lead was considered, every possibility documented. Ballistics reports confirmed the type of weapon used.
Witness statements detailed the suddenness of the attack.
Medical reports outlined the injuries sustained by both victims, highlighting the severity of the ambush. Public records confirmed formal charges: first-degree murder while armed, multiple counts of assault with intent to kill, and firearm-related offenses, all filed with the D.C. Superior Court. The impact of the shooting extended beyond the immediate crime scene. Memorials sprang up near Farragut West Metro Station, with flowers, flags, and notes honoring the fallen soldier. Across the country, military and civilian communities mourned, reflecting on the human cost of sudden violence. The federal government responded swiftly. Immigration and refugee procedures for Afghan passport holders were temporarily halted while agencies reviewed vetting and resettlement processes. Political debates flared nationwide. One side demanded stricter asylum and immigration controls citing national security, the other warned against stereotyping entire communities for the actions of one individual. The surviving soldier, Andrew Wolf, received extensive medical care and support, while advocacy groups and fellow National Guard members offered solidarity.
The loss of Specialist Beckram prompted national reflection on the risks faced daily by service members on domestic duty. Courts moved quickly.
The suspect's first appearance was conducted virtually from the hospital, highlighting both the seriousness of his injuries and the urgency of the legal process. Magistrate judges emphasized the terror caused by the attack and ordered detention without bond. Prosecutors indicated that additional charges might be filed as investigations continued.
Meanwhile, the public grappled with unanswered questions. What motivated the suspect? Could this attack have been prevented? What changes were necessary to ensure the safety of both civilians and deployed service members?
These debates highlighted tensions between public safety, civil liberties, and national security, forces that collide in complex ways whenever an act of violence shocks a nation. In the end, the ambush near the White House is more than a headline. It's a stark reminder of vulnerability, even in places considered secure. As investigators continue their work, the public is left with partial truths, reports, and speculation. Yet one thing is clear: this event exposed gaps in security planning, tested federal and local response protocols, and challenged citizens to face the uncomfortable reality that danger can appear anywhere, at any time. It's also a reminder of restraint. While public outrage is natural, and while debate over immigration, asylum, and military presence is ongoing, it is critical to separate fact from rumor.
The motive remains unconfirmed, and the legal process will determine accountability. Misinformation, unverified claims, and assumptions cannot replace evidence.
For those watching from D.C., across the United States, or around the world, this story is a lesson in vigilance, empathy, and the weight of decisions made in real time by both citizens and authorities. The streets of the capital will eventually return to their daily rhythm, but the echoes of that afternoon, the sudden violence, the loss, the courage, and the questions that remain will linger.
This is raw reality. No gloss, no sugarcoat, just the truth.